Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today, in an effort to obtain some more 5-star reads before the end of the year, I've decided to do a 5-star prediction reading vlog. So you may be aware that so far this year I have had very few 5-star reads. As of today, I think I've only had 3 5-star reads since the start of 2024. So what I've done is I've looked at my TBR shelves and I've picked the 4 books that I think are most likely to be 5 stars. So I will show you what they are now. So the first one, and I'm not sure which order I'm going to read these in, but the first is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, which is translated from Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. So everyone who I have heard talk about this has loved it, and it sounds like it could be a me book. It's about an older woman in her 60s who lives in a remote Polish village, and somehow she becomes embroiled in a murder investigation. But I don't think it's a typical crime story. I think it looks at marginalised people and politics and different things. I have heard it compared to Death in Her Hands by Atesha Moshfegh, which is a book that I really like. So I'm hoping that bodes well for this one. I have The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. There are 2 booktubers in particular who I've heard talk very highly about this. Amelia from Amelia Barlow Books and also Kirsten from Reading Nymph. I know they both love this book. It is like a modern classic. This is the one out of all of these books that I feel could potentially go either way for me. So it's about a group of sisters who I think all die by suicide. The book is told from the boys who live in their town or village. It's told in, I think, first person plural, so from the we perspective from the boys. So I'm interested in this because obviously I've heard good things about it. I'm interested in that narrative voice. On the face of it, if someone told me what this book was about, I feel like it sounds like it could be awful. I'm sure it's not because it's such a well-loved book. So I'm really sort of intrigued to see what I think about that one. But I think it has potential to be one I really like from what I've heard other people say about it. Next is a short story collection. This is How to Gut a Fish by Sheila Armstrong. So the reason this is on this list is because one of the few 5 stars I've had this year so far was Falling Animals by Sheila Armstrong. I did an individual book review video of that one, so I'll link that down below. And I love that book. I thought that was wonderful. So this is a short story collection that was published before Falling Animals was. So simply the reason I think this could be 5 stars is because it's by Sheila Armstrong. I do really like short story collections. I know a fair amount of people don't tend to get on with them. I really like short stories. I will say that I can't think of that many short story collections that I've given 5 stars to. The one that springs to mind is Revenge by Yoko Ogawa. But you never know, and if any are going to be 5 stars, potentially it could be this one. I've not heard anyone else review this before, but if the writing is anything like it is in Falling Animals, hopefully I will really like it. And then the other book that I'm planning on reading is Chlorine by Jade. So this is one that had been on my radar, but then I heard Kirsten from Reading Nymph talk about this, and everything Kirsten said made me think like it could be a book I really love. It's about a teenage girl who gets into competitive swimming and I think somehow maybe kind of becomes a mermaid. I really love this front cover. It's like the most beautiful front cover I've ever seen in my life. I would have this on my wall. So I think it's coming of age, it's about puberty, it's queer. It just sounds like something that could be really my kind of thing. So those are the 4 books that I am planning on reading for this reading vlog. So if you want to pause the video, let me know which of these, if any, you think will be 5-star reads. I mean, some of these could even be DNFs because this is me, you know. So let me know if you think any of these will be 5 stars and which ones you think will be 5 stars for me. So I have actually started reading one of these books last night, and I thought I would check in and give you my initial thoughts. So the book I started reading was Chlorine. So I am up to, I've read 50 pages, and so far I really like this. a lot. If I was giving it a rating based on the first chapter alone, it would absolutely be 5 stars, because I thought it was that good. You can see that I've already tabbed a few little bits here as well. The book opens up with Ren narrating the story and telling us that I think she somehow has become a mermaid, and she's going to tell us her story of how that happened. I'm not sure how like literal that is or is intended to be, but it was a great first chapter, and then we've been introduced to like her family. She's Chinese American, one of her good friends, and we've been introduced to this swimming coach who honestly seems like quite a creep, and then we had a section where she started her first period, and I thought that was so well described, because honestly it's horrific, and that is what periods are like, let's be honest. Absolutely horrific, and I really appreciated the brutal honesty of how that was told, sort of like the shock that she feels on experiencing this, and the impact that has on her swimming and changes to her body, and how that again is impacted on her swimming and so on. And then so we're seeing the friendship between her and one of the other girls called Kathy, who I think there's maybe going to be a little bit something more there. So far it's holding up to be definitely on track to be a potential 5 star. I will say I'll be surprised if it's anything less than a 4 star based on the strength of the opening to the book. So I have now finished Chlorine, and drumroll please, it was a 5 star. I absolutely love this so much. I honestly thought it was an incredible book. So I think I've already mentioned a bit about what it's about. So we've got a young girl called Ren who is getting into competitive swimming at school and is starting to go through puberty. So she starts her periods, and there's some like really visceral descriptions of that, and it's about Ren coming to, I guess, understand her body, the changes to her body in relation to puberty, in relation to the swimming and the different things that she does to succeed at that. And it's about Ren trying to and wanting to take control of those things, take control of her body. And Ren has this dream of being a mermaid, of sort of transcending her humanity in a way, and I thought it was a really incredible book. It's shelved under horror. I don't think it's scary horror. I think there are certain aspects of the book that I guess you could deem as horrific. There is some stuff which is a bit grotesque, and the horrors really are more kind of reality horrors. Like, I guess really it's the horror of being alive, being a human, being a young woman, all of those things, rather than it being sort of like a scary horror story, but nevertheless very impactful. There were certain points as I was reading it where I was sort of like reading it between my fingers because of things that were going on. It is quite a queer book as well in terms of the sort of potential feelings between Ren and her best friend. I think there's a non-binary character in there as well. So I really liked those aspects of the book too. Honestly, I really loved it. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was really well written as well. As you can see, I've sort of tabbed up quite a bit of it there. I thought it was a wonderful read. If you like books that look at, I guess, coming of age and books that are a little bit weird, a little bit unsettling, and yeah, unusual in some way, I'd give it a go. Honestly, I thought it was really, really incredible, and I can't believe I've clicked off this vlog with a 5-star. I feel like I've peaked too soon. But that's great. I'm so pleased to have a 5-star, because I actually wasn't sure if that would happen. So I have started my next book, and the one I've started is How to Gut a Fish by Sheila Armstrong. So this is the short story collection. So I've only read 3 of the stories. I just started it this morning. So far, a bit of a mixed bag. So the first story I liked. The first story is called Whole, and it is very reminiscent of the writing and the imagery that Sheila Armstrong has within her novel Falling Animals. We are in like a rural area, looking at the landscape, the different characters. It's like at night time, so we've got odd individual characters, and we've got like animals doing different things, and sort of quite an isolated vibe. I liked that. The next story was the titular How to Gut a Fish, which was very unexpected. It's basically I'm not going to give any spoilers. It's like a list, kind of. Do we call it a list? A numbered list of different steps. This character explaining how to gut a fish. I think he works in a I don't know, like a restaurant, or it's part of his job anyway, whatever he's doing, gutting this fish. And as he's doing it, he is reflecting on different aspects of his life and his family and things. And then it kind of went somewhere I really wasn't expecting. And I was reading it on the train this morning, and it was like, ooh, that was an excellent story. And then the third story I read is called The Skellington Dance, and I honestly just didn't get that story. You know, sometimes you just don't get it. I just didn't get it. So far it's a mixed bag. I suspect it's not going to be 5-star, but I expect it to be maybe between like a 3 and a 4. I am enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to continuing on. I have now finished How to Gut a Fish, and I'm going to settle on a 3-star. I think that feels about right. So I did enjoy the collection, and I would revisit it in future. I think it's probably a collection that I need to spend some time with. Some stories I got on with more than others. My favourite was called Red Market, and it is set in this everyday market. People going about buying their fruit and veg and meat and so on, and then there's something unexpected in the market. I will say the back spoils it, but I clearly have not taken note of the back, because when we got to this bit, I was like, hang on, have I zoned out and skipped 10 pages or what? Like, what's going on here? So it's quite a dark story, but I really, really liked it. It had a touch of Shirley Jackson about it. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Not a 5-star, but a book that I would reread in future. I have started my next book, which is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. So I'm only about 80 pages in, and I am enjoying it so far. So within the first chapter, I think even like, is it the first page? We know that all these sisters, like 5 sisters, that they're all going to die by suicide. So the book is told, I guess, in the present day, looking back. Within the first chapter, Cecilia, the youngest girl, dies. And we know that I think within a year, all the others would follow suit. It's told from a first-person plural perspective, from the boys who live in the same town as these girls. What's their names? The 5 Lisbon sisters. So it's told from the perspective of these boys and their interactions with the girls at school, or in the neighbourhood. And these girls are all sort of very beautiful, and the boys perceive them in many ways as a collective, rather than individual people. And the Cecilia, the one who dies first, her diary is discovered, and from her diary we see as well, to a certain extent, how the girls themselves seem to almost blend into one person as well. The narrative style is really interesting, actually, because it feels a little bit like a documentary. So there are little snippets of quotes from people who like knew the girls that'll be mentioned. So people who knew the girls who are talking like in the present day, saying, you know, different things about their experience with the girls. One of them is referenced as being an interview, so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it'll become apparent, like the structure of this, like what is prompting this story to now be told. But yeah, no, I like it. I think I don't know if it will be a 5-star. I think a lot of my final rating will depend on what I take as like the message from the book, what I take as what I perceive to be the author's intention, because it's such a like difficult topic, and at this point I'm not sure what I'm meant to be taken from the story, but I am only up to page 80. It's very, very readable. So yeah, I am enjoying it, and I'm intrigued to see how this sort of plays out. Hello, I have now finished The Virgin Suicides, and I loved this book. I really, really loved it. I've given it 4.5 stars, but even now, I finished it a few days ago. I was just flicking through, I've tabbed it up quite a bit, and I was just flicking through thinking about what I wanted to say about it. And even now I'm thinking, is it a 5-star? Like, it's really close to being a 5-star. But the fact that I'm sort of not certain means it's probably not quite there. I do think on a reread, it has the potential to become a 5-star, because as I went through the book and I understood like what the book was doing, I thought it was incredibly well done. And I think it's a book that I will get more out of on a reread. So, my thoughts. So I guess the key thing about this book is it's not really about the Lisbon sisters. It's about people's perceptions of them. We have these boys who are narrating the story, who were obsessed with these sisters, who idolised them, objectified them, romanticised them during their life, but also after their death. And, you know, this is about these boys looking back at the past, at what happened, and I guess trying to make sense of it, but always with themselves, the boys, as a key part of the narrative in terms of like their relationship to the sisters, or what the sisters thought of them, and that sort of thing, rather than just like the sisters themselves. So we get perceptions of the boys, we get glimpses from the teachers who taught the girls at the school, their impressions of the girls. We get tiny little bits of like the mother, very briefly, and within the overall story we do get little glimpses of the real girls. And when we get those little glimpses through the overall narrative from these boys, who paint these girls as almost otherworldly creatures who are just so beautiful, and, you know, that they obsess over them. Within that, we do get little glimpses that come through of what the girls maybe were really like, and actually they very much seem like normal teenage girls when we get those glimpses. And that's not to like put them down in any way, but it's to show how much the girls are removed really from being the centre of the story. We also get some like extracts of things that newspapers have said about these girls, like after their deaths, that journalists have said, things that, you know, the public have said. And so I think it's a really interesting exploration of like people's views of the truth, of people and these boys looking back and trying to sort of interpret the facts of what happened into a story to make themselves feel comfortable with things that happened, to, I guess, excuse themselves from some of the things they did which were questionable at best. I thought it was really, really well done. It was published in the early 90s and it made me think a little bit about how lately there's been quite a lot of novels looking at true crime, the nature of true crime, in particular people's obsession with it. But you know, some of those books I've read and really, really enjoyed, but this sort of feels like it would sit quite comfortably alongside some of those in terms of exploring how people will twist a story to fit their purposes, and how the people at the centre of the story are lost amongst other people's ideas of the truth and what happened. I honestly thought this was really, really incredible. So yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking, is it a 5-star? It's so close to being a 5-star. But I really loved it. Like, this was a real win. And I think my nervousness from going into it was because, like, on the surface, it's a story about these young girls who killed themselves and it's being told by these boys. So you think, well, it sounds awful, but then that's that is the point. It's meant to be, you know, a questionable narrative. And the book actually contains 2 things that I really love in books. So it's no wonder I really loved it. It's very much about obsession. And I love books about obsession. And it also contains unreliable narrators. Not in the sense that there's any sort of like big twists and turns, but these boys are very much unreliable narrators, in terms of we're very much only seeing their perception of these girls. Everything is viewed through their eyes. And it's very clear that I think it's very clear that the intention of the author is that these boys, you know, are not entirely blameless. It was interesting on looking at some of the reviews on Storygraph, and there's one that I read which said something like, God, it was really nothing about these girls, it was just all about these boys and their thoughts and da-da-da, and it was like, I mean, I think that was the point of the book, really. So yeah, we do own a copy of the film in this house. I have not seen it yet, but I will be watching it. I'm interested to see what they've done with the film. So yeah, this was a real, real win. I have now started my final book for this vlog, which is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. So my early thoughts, I say early thoughts, I'm actually about halfway through the book already, but my early thoughts are that I'm really, really enjoying this. I've tabbed this up quite a lot. I keep finding just sentences that I think are real gems. So this is about Janina, who is in her 60s and she lives in a remote Polish village. She has quite an isolated life. And the novel sort of centres around these deaths that have occurred in the village of these men. And Janina is you know, somewhat involved in what's happening. She, along with someone else, found one of the bodies, for example. It's told in first person perspective, which I really like. I think Janina is a really fascinating character, and I'm finding it kind of surprisingly relatable as well. She is very conscious that she thinks other people consider her to be mad. I think that's the word that she uses. And yeah, I think she can be perceived to be somewhat eccentric. she tries to impose meaning on things in life and on things that are happening in the plot of the novel through different ways. So, for example, she believes in astrology, and she tries to use that as explaining away different things that are happening. She also sort of muses a lot on like her position in the universe and like the meaning of life sort of thing. So I'm finding her a really, really interesting character. I really like the writing. It's not, it's easy to read as well. Like, it's not, I thought it could have been a little bit, what's the word, dense, and it's not really at all. But it's really well written. I am thoroughly enjoying this. And yeah, I would quite happily just sit down and read the rest of the book in one go. Which I might do tomorrow actually, because I'm off work. So in terms of where I think the rating might be, I would expect it to be at least a 4-star, but honestly, as I'm reading it, it's giving me 5-star vibes, like totally, because I just love it, like I really love it. So I don't want to jinx anything, but I am really hoping this might be a 5-star, and it would be great to finish the vlog on another 5-star. But I really, really am loving this book. I can totally see why it has had such high praise, and obviously Olga Tokarczuk has won the Nobel Prize in Literature as well. And I haven't even finished this yet, and I'm already thinking when I can, how I can get my hands on another of her books to pick up. Hopefully not soon after finishing this one. So yes, stay tuned for my final thoughts. It's time to wrap this vlog up by telling you that not only was Drive Your Plow a 5-star read for me, it is going to be in contention for one of my favourite books that I read in 2024. I loved this book so much. You know how sometimes you read a book and it just completely gets under your skin? I loved everything about it. The balance of like emotions I got from this book was just perfect. You can see how much I have tabbed it up. I honestly loved it. So it is a murder mystery. We have men in this village who are dying in somewhat mysterious circumstances, and the police are investigating, and our main character Janina is sort of tangentially involved and is trying to understand things that are going on, and is trying to make the police listen to her in terms of what she thinks is happening and what's causing these deaths. And the police are not really listening to her. So it is a murder mystery, but it's not a traditional murder mystery. However, there are certain aspects of the novel which are very much traditional murder mystery, which I really, really enjoyed. I thought that was so well done, and I'm not going to give any spoilers. I thought Janina as a main character was just brilliant. She is, I'm being somewhat eccentric, but really how she is viewed by other people in the village is purely down to the fact that she's an older woman. She's in her 60s, she lives by herself, and sort of that in itself renders her almost invisible to a lot of people, which is explored really well in the book. The book also looks at grief in a really moving way, and also friendship as well. Like, both those elements of the book really, really moved me. Because Janina does have some friends within the village where she is, and those friendships are really, really just lovely to read about. Everything about this book was just completely spot on for me. I loved it. I didn't want to put it down. I would happily reread it again right now. I don't know why it's took me so long to get to it. I just absolutely loved it. I loved everything about it. So yeah, so let's wrap up this vlog. Let me get the books. So I think this has been a really successful reading vlog, because out of the 4 books I've had 2 5 stars, and I've had a 4.5 star, and I really enjoyed the other one even though it wasn't a 5-star. But honestly, I was not expecting to get 2 5-stars and a 4.5 out of this reading vlog. I just wasn't. Bear in mind, by about 6 months into the year, I think I'd had 1 5-star all year. So this is quite surprising. So do let me know at the start of the video if any of you predicted how many 5-stars you thought I would get, and if so, which ones you thought would be 5-stars out of the 4 books that I picked up for the vlog. Did anyone predict that I was going to like DNF all of them? Because honestly, that's always a possibility with me, but fortunately no DNFs in this vlog. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I'm so pleased to have got a couple more 5-stars in before the end of the year. Cutting it fine, but still got them in just before the end. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I will speak to you again very soon.